The following is a member of the Burke Reviews podcast family. BurkeReviews.com.
Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome!
Welcome to the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast. I'm John Burke from BurkeReviews.com, and with me
is Matt Hudson from What I Watched Tonight.
And this is our first episode of our new podcast that we decided to do. How's it going, Matt?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to it. It's been in the works for a little while now, and I know it's something that we do week to week, month to month, watch the new reviews, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a good introduction to what this is going to be. This is going to be a monthly podcast. We're going to do this once a month, and we're going to look back at the previous month's big releases, and we will have each watched them, and now we're going to talk about our kind of takes on these big movies. So, Matt, what movies are we going to talk about this month?
This month we have got a mixed bag, shall we say. The Cloverfield Paradox, 50 Shades Freed, Black Panther, and Annihilation. And there is a couple more to add in at the end, a few teasers there.
Yeah, and we both have seen all of these films at our local cineplexes, which are very far apart, mind you.
About 6,000 miles apart.
Yeah, you know, it's not that far. But I had to make an effort for a couple of these, but one of them came right to our front door, right, with Cloverfield Paradox.
Yeah, that was, what a great marketing angle that was with the Super Bowl. I don't watch the Super Bowl. I was online waiting for the Solo trailer to drop. Just basically waiting for all the trailers, and then suddenly it came up, Cloverfield. Drops after the game, and I thought that was incredible bit of marketing. But what would you expect from Cloverfield or J.J. Abrams?
Yeah, that is what the series is now, I guess, best known for, is their interesting attempts of dropping their movies with surprises and not really giving much away until you watch it. And I was watching the Super Bowl for the first 10 minutes, and then my wife looked at me and said, "Do you want to watch a movie?" Which I'm always going to say yes to.
Of course.
So we ended up watching The Florida Project.
Good film.
And my friend texted me about the Cloverfield trailer, and I'm like, "Oh, when's that coming out?" He's like, "Tonight." I'm like, "Hold on."
3 hours time.
Yeah. So I foregoed sleep in order to be among the first to see it. As soon as the Super Bowl was over, I hopped on Netflix and watched it. And I am the dissenting opinion, apparently. Most people seem to hate this movie. Yeah. And I don't like being that guy normally, but I had a blast watching Cloverfield.
I really enjoyed the first half of it when they're setting up the mystery of actually what's happened, and they kind of these strange things are starting to happen, and I really enjoyed that. But then it kind of tailed off for me in the second half of the film.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't blown away by anything, but I just had a really good time watching it, and I especially loved Chris O'Dowd.
Yes, and his arm.
Yeah, and his arm.
His arm.
So many lines in that film that he says are hilarious, and in deeper analysis of the film, I have come to realize how dumb so much of it is, but I still had fun with it. You know what I mean?
There is a lot of people just walking around, kind of looking at the walls and pointing, and sort of, how did that get there? What's happening to the wall? What's going on? There's a lot of that kind of talk going on.
Things happen for no real reason, because there is a point where it almost seems like which I guess we should point out, we won't spoil these movies.
No, you're safe.
So we're not going to go into any specific details. So if you haven't seen them yet, don't fret. But there was a part that happens in the movie where when I started thinking about it later, I'm like, yeah, why did that happen? None of it really made sense. They were just a series of episodic events. And I found those events generally entertaining, and thus I didn't hate the movie.
But then you put them together into one linking story, and suddenly it doesn't to me, I don't know. They all show. I mean, the three films share the name of Cloverfield, but I mean, I think the films are trying their hardest to have nothing in common. I have seen some videos with different Easter eggs of how they combine, but never, I would never have thought that was a Cloverfield movie until there are a few things that happen which hint towards it, but I don't know. It's just it became like you say, there was things that happened which didn't really make any sense. It became a bit convoluted. Things were introduced which didn't really work and didn't really add to the story, or if anything, confused it even more.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things, because I have heard differing opinions, I went in expecting the Cloverfield movies to be an anthology like The Twilight Zone. They're only connected by name and have no other linking other than themes. Like there's connecting themes through all of the films. They all deal with sci-fi. They deal with some type of disaster, human survival. And so I don't expect much from it, like the story. Like the first Cloverfield, it's a monster movie. It's a Godzilla movie, essentially. I mean, you don't see the monster as much as you do in some other movies.
Don't really see him at all,
yeah, more than the 2014 Godzilla, but still, like not a whole lot. And I enjoyed that movie. And then 10 Cloverfield Lane, I think maybe ruined the anthology aspect because it's such a good movie that it's probably way better and shouldn't have been attached to the Cloverfield brand.
I think Cloverfield's going to be our kind of yin and yang, because I did like the first one, but I didn't like 10 Cloverfield Lane all that much.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think I might be that guy when it comes to the second part, because I don't know. I thought John Goodman was good, and there's no way would I ever want to be trapped in a bunker with John Goodman when he's like that. But I don't know. Again, it just kind of lots of things happened for me, which just it was for me. It just didn't hit the mark. So Cloverfield at the minute is a 30% strike rate for me.
I see that. Okay, well, so that then it's not. You didn't go into Paradox with a lot of expectations, I guess, either, because you were 1 for 1 or 1 for 2, I should say.
I kind of had I was holding on to hope somewhat, but
got it.
I'd heard I know because it was, I think it was the God Particle. It was before that was the original script, and then J.J. Abrams got hold of it, kind of linked it more into Cloverfield. But the initial story of God Particle. Now that I was really intrigued by that, and I thought that was fantastic. With obviously the scientists playing around with particles in space and what they end up doing, I thought that's a brilliant movie. But the way it ended up, it was disappointing.
Yeah, and they did cram a lot of the Cloverfield stuff into it. Like even they call something on the ship or something or whatever. They say the word Cloverfield in the movie, which I don't think they had done in the previous two films. Like, I don't think the word Cloverfield was ever said.
I don't remember it being said, no. Seen, but not said,
Yeah, so it's like, that felt a little more, like, forced in, like, make sure people know that it's Cloverfield. But I guess my expectations, I kind of went into it wanting, like, a sci-fi, like the network, not the genre, like a sci-fi movie, and I got that. It was, a lot of like a B sci-fi movie. It was a lot of crazy stuff happened. It was fun. There was humor. There was enough good. I mean, gosh, the performances in the film, like all the actors, I thought were doing their
there was nothing wrong with
best.
the performances. Gugu and Martha Rohr, she's brilliant. She really holds that movie up. And like I say, Chris O'Dowd, he gives that levity, and he gives that fun during it. But there's nothing wrong with the performances at all.
Well, and that's you're definitely on the majority here. Most people have given it really bad reviews, and I remember waking up the next morning because I wrote my review and had it posted and everything, and woke up the next morning and started seeing everyone else's reviews on Letterboxd. I'm like, oh. The person who texted me, who's Big Tuna, who's a regular contributor to Burke Reviews, he also liked the film. So the two of us liked it. Seems like the rest of the world didn't. I know
it's just that area of the world seemed to have liked it. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Devendra Hardwar, who is on the Slash Filmcast and part of Slash Film, he also liked it, but said I think I quoted him by saying it's a B sci-fi movie. He's like I was fine with that, but yeah, it's not a work of art or anything like that, but it was a fun experience.
I think if you're going in to have fun and just kind of, I don't want to call it a mindless fun because it certainly isn't mindless, but if you just go in and just have a good time, it's gonna. I think this is a film that will help you out. I mean, I didn't help myself by looking into the fact, but by knowing a bit more about the original story And I was kind of hoping for this sort of intelligent sci-fi film, and I thought I was going to get that for the first 40 minutes, and then by the end of it, I thought, well, at least the marketing was good.
Yeah, and it was. It's changed marketing. I mean, Netflix is doing this a little more and more, it seems, with these random drops, and I feel like they just did something else the same way, where they didn't really announce it was happening until just before its release. I can't think of what it was now, but I think it's a show, not a.
They do it. It was TV shows, yeah.
Yeah, the Chris Rock stand-up special dropped like a week ago, and it was not announced till the night before. That it was.
Do you think that's a good change to what Netflix are doing? Do you like it? Or?
I don't know. It's interesting, and it's. I've had an issue with how they market their movies anyways. I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore was a great example.
I liked that film.
It's a great film, and it's been buried. Like, where it never pops up on Netflix. Like, you don't hear Netflix talk about it. And when it was the day they posted out on the network, it's on the top. You see it, and then a week or two later, it's just buried underneath all the other movies. And I hate that, because great films get missed. And honestly, a film we're going to talk about in a little bit, but Mute. I logged into Netflix expecting to see Mute at the top of my screen, and it wasn't. Like, I had to go searching for it. It wasn't even popping up that it came out, and it came out yesterday. Yeah. So they need to, I don't know, they need to change the system where you can, I think, browse easier, like, without knowing a movie's there. Like, there should be some better system to, like, find real new releases. Because, like, right now, if I look at new releases, almost everything on it has a Netflix stamp on it. Like, they're all Netflix originals. There's, like, nothing else there. And it's like, well, hold on. Are you only putting your stuff in the new category? But
sorted by rate. I don't know how they could do it. I know it does need a reshake, because so I know some people like sitting on Netflix for hours and going back and forward, but I just like to, like you say, I like to pop up on my screen. Sometimes I just want to sit down, get chill out, Netflix and chill out, watch it, and not have to go searching. But I was lucky when I found I don't feel at home in this world anymore, because I was on a searching mode for that and happened to find it, and I'm glad I did. That was a good film on Netflix. Not sure about Cloverfield.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that seems to be. I know, it's okay. I have to like some of the movies other people don't, I guess, to give some juxtaposition. I don't want to just always
if we all agreed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be the guy who's just always like, yep, I agree with everybody else's point of view. So, and I think the next movie, though, I think we might be on the same page. 50 Shades Freed.
Oh. that was also a snippet from the film, by the way. Yeah, I'll let you start with it, because you had your challenge to see this film, so I'll let you lead with this one.
I had to go and see this, and I've not seen the other two. So I knew only what I was able to get off of YouTube mock videos where they were making fun of, or there was, I think it's they're
called reviews, I think.
Yeah, well, some maybe they're just simply reviews, but Screen Junkies have a thing where they do like a synopsis of the film, so you can just jump right into the new one. But they do it kind of, I don't know. I only watched the one for 50 Shades, so maybe if they like the series, they'll do it and be kind. But they did it and were definitely, making jokes along the way. But I was flabbergasted at the popularity of these movies after seeing 50 Shades Freed. Because even in my screening, it was pretty packed, especially for like a Thursday night opening weekend movie at our local theater. Those very few are packed. Like Star Wars and Marvel movies, pretty guaranteed you're gonna have an audience, and maybe some of the Disney Pixar stuff. But never have I seen a film like this have a huge audience at my local theater, and it did. It was 90% female.
And the only other back, didn't you?
I did sit in the back. I did get a dirty look from a woman in the audience when I first sat down, and I kind of looked like, hey, I'm not doing anything. I don't even want to be here. And there was a few other guys in the theater, but they were with their wives. In fact, when I was walking in, an old man and his wife were walking in, and there's this particular auditorium had two doors to go in. You can go left or right. And the wife was like, which door? And he just said, I don't care. This is your movie. And I was like, that's the tone. Yeah. So, I went in, I watched it, I rolled my eyes countless times, and the reason I was most uncomfortable with seeing it was I knew the movie had the whole S&M or thing to it, and so I was a little uncomfortable, like being a lone man in this movie, because I would assume most people think I'm just there for the nudie scenes or whatever. But they're not even like that. There's a lot of sex scenes, and I'm using quote fingers that no one can see, but really there's not. Like it's a very tame movie by comparison to the premise. Like, I was expecting it to be really raunchy and graphic, and while yes, there's way too many of those scenes, they're generally just like quick, and it's two actors who don't seem to like each other at all, like barely naked and barely doing anything. So by the end, I was like, not only was this boring, but I felt like all of my concern about the perception of my attendance to this movie was misled, because it's pretty mild and bland and vanilla of a love story.
So you would have been happy had there been a lot more raunchy sex.
Well, now, hold on. Not what I mean to say, but at least I would understand why these movies had... Because the two things that they promise... They have a reputation, and I don't think either works, because the love story is awful, and if you are watching this and thinking this is how love should be, we need to retrain you, because something is wrong. Because, one, she just wants to change this awful human being, or... he has manipulated and brainwashed her to the point where she is blind to how awful he appears to be. Or the lesson you can learn is that it doesn't matter how bad a person is as long as they have money. Neither of which are things that I want my kid picking up on,
Absolutely. My favourite quote, one of them was at the end. It's not a spoiler, but she, what's her name? Anastasia, Dakota Johnson's character, Anastasia, she says, Christian's not a bad guy at all. And he's literally spent the trilogy of films being a bad guy.
Yes.
And that's when I thought, wow, they've literally they've ended the trilogy with that. Basically, everything you've just seen is a massive lie, I don't quite know what they were aiming for, but I think the writers have just given up. Let's hope nobody notices that we spent 3 films setting this guy up to be a complete douchebag, and let's hope nobody notices, because at the end, I agree with everything you said. I had a really good time watching this film, but not at all for the reason that the director wanted. It was unintentionally funny. There were times that, at the end of every scene was just suddenly somebody would raise an eyebrow or bite their lip. This sensual music would start, and then they'd suddenly start going at it. And there was a scene where they do it on a kitchen table, and I really hope they clean that afternoon, because people eat their breakfast on that for the next day. But it was so, the dialogue is horrible. The actors, they, Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson, they try their hardest, you can tell, but I think Jamie Dornan also just looks like he's dead behind the eyes. He doesn't. They try hard, but like you say, the chemistry it's minimal. It is also a bland movie for a film which is meant to be about sort of kinky sex. It's incredibly bland. It isn't sexy. It's not titillating. I didn't find it anyway, and nobody in my screen thought it was. But it's just a bland movie. Everything just seems to have like a grey filter. No pun intended. But it's literally a grey filter. It's very shiny, but it's just boring as well.
Yeah. Oh, this movie has possibly the worst car chase I've ever seen on screen. It is so boring and pointless, and
yeah. And my partner, she watched it because she doesn't mind these 3 films. She sees them for what they are, as sort of silly films just to kind of watch and not take too seriously. But even she said, when she's meant to be driving this sort of 200-mile-an-hour sports car, and she kind of just sort of looked like she was on a Nintendo Wii, just sort of having a bit of fun. There was no tension at all in her face.
No, none. There was there was more tension in the trailer. In that sequence, like, they showed that car chase in the trailer, but it's trimmed down and it looks way more intense than what it is in the actual movie. Like, it was just
I thought all of their trailers look quite good, which is the problem. They suck you in with these trailers which look quite intriguing, I'm going to admit that, but then when you see the films are basically just a shiny sort of hour-and-a-half movie video advert. With a new trendy soundtrack. I didn't really recognise many of their songs, I will admit to that as well, but I don't know. It just seemed it very much all style and absolutely no substance whatsoever. It's cool to like them. There's nothing wrong if you like the films. I'd never hate on anyone or tell anyone not to like a film, but it's hard work.
I would encourage you, though, if you do like these films, to maybe try some other love stories, because there are some really great ones out there. And I don't think this is one of them. Maybe you think Dakota Johnson's the prettiest girl, or you think whatever that dude's name is really hot, but there are other people that are also pretty and hot. There's other options, I guess, is my point of view. Again, you're welcome to like anything you want to like, but, maybe see what else is out there. There's some good stuff.
If you've seen Ghostbusters, how Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver get on is kind of similar to chemistry in 50 Shades.
I don't know. I think that's a better love story.
I'm about to say, actually, to be fair, it's a more real love story.
Yeah, and Ghostbusters 2, the chemistry develops, I think, pretty well.
Yeah. But, by then it has, yeah.
Yeah, it took a little while, but, they had 3 movies in 50 Shades. It didn't ever get there, so...
No, thankfully, there's not going to... Well, actually... But there's not going to be, as far as there's not going to be a 4th, but these movies made a lot of money. The target audience, they lapped it up, they loved it. So Who knows? There may be. No, I haven't heard anything, but who's to bet against there being another movie 5 years later?
Yeah, and the fact that this came as a Twilight fan fiction in the first place is still like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I'm not a fan of the Twilight movies either, although I am supporters of both Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson as actors.
As actors, they're fantastic.
Yeah, just somehow got lumped into those horrible movies. So
yeah, and they're doing every low-budget indie film they can now to try and erase the memory of Twilight. But I think their low-budget indie films are a lot better than Twilight.
Yeah, Personal Shopper and Good Time from last year are both amazing. So, yeah, if you haven't seen those and you're a fan of Twilight, check those out. But an interesting thing I'm noticing, too, this month, the beginning of the month is pretty tough, because had we done a theatrical release instead of Cloverfield, we probably would have done Winchester.
Oh, that was my review in words. Was just,
Yeah, and that's all it needs to be said about Winchester. There's nothing positive to say. And so the first half of our month is bad. But I think the second half of February turns it around pretty well. So
picks up a lot in the second half.
So what were your thoughts on Black Panther?
I thought Black Panther was fantastic. I've mentioned before, I'm not the biggest comic book movie fan. The reason being is they become at times, sometimes a beat for beat, they become a bit too similar, or there's the kind of the world is at peril again risk.
Oh,
which
yes.
Is once you've overplayed it, it can be an issue. But with Black Panther, you don't have any of that. It's a contained story within this gorgeous nation of Wakanda. The moments when it does branch out into sort of the perilous moments are actually probably the weaker moments of the film. But this is a fantastic film. This is a top grade film. Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan are superb. I mean, Michael B. Jordan almost steals the film. In fact, he probably does.
Yeah.
Take the film as Killmonger, probably one of the best villains in the MCU. I think a lot of people have said that, and I'm going to agree with them. Killmonger's fantastic. He's cold. He's merciless, but he's got a purpose. He's almost a sympathetic villain. You know, as the movie goes on, you almost start to side with him. Chadwick Boseman leading the film. He has this brilliant vulnerability about him and a fantastic strength as well. And there's just something about him which is just effortlessly likable. I think he's a brilliant actor, but you got to say, you would not mess with any of the women in this nation.
No way.
No way. They are fantastic. Letitia Wright and all, they are. I mean, they're badass. They are. Oh man, they really are warriors. But Black Panther, it's such a talented cast. It's got a really tight story. I liked the story and where it went and how they tied all the different plots and characters in. I thought that was very good. And you know, it started something new now. That train has left the station, and bring it on.
Yeah, and I am I am also starting to feel the comic book fatigue, even though I am a comic book fan first. Long time. Like I am sitting in a room surrounded by Batman memorabilia because I am a huge, crazy Batman fan.
Batman's cool, though.
Right. It's very hard to dislike Batman, and I'm also I grew up a big fan of the Amazing Spider-Man. And even I got into Spawn. Spawn got real popular when I was in middle school, so I fell into that. And so I've been on the comic book movie bandwagon, going back to the 90s comic book movies when we got Blade and everything. And I never thought I could ever feel tired of them. And right before Black Panther, I started feeling like maybe it's too much. When we're looking at the year and there's 4 comic book movies coming out at the least, it starts to feel like there's too many. And there's probably closer to 6. I can think of 4 right off the top of my head that I know are definitely coming out this year, and 3 of which are happening within the first 6 months of the year.
You got one right at the end, at least.
Yeah. So, and then you mentioned if you were to compare the Marvel movies to the DC movies, it is a travesty, because every single DC movie has been the world is in peril. Every one of them. Like, there has not been a simple story in any of the DC films so far.
Yep.
And that is definitely one of the biggest flaws. And what Marvel has done is insane, because they continue to evolve and grow and merge genre. They're not just making comic book movies. They're making movies with comic book characters in them.
That's a very good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, and it's it makes a difference. And Black Panther is just another step in that direction. Ryan Coogler is... I can't believe he's only made 3 movies, the dude is masterful, and him and Michael B. Jordan are getting comparisons to Scorsese and Robert De Niro.
De Niro, yep.
Yeah, which
For good
is
reason too.
Brilliant reason, because I love Fruitvale Station, I love Creed, and Black Panther is right up there for me. I will say both Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther, I had issues with some of the CG. Especially the bulk fight sequences when there's so much going on.
The main action sequences which are the problem. I think I had more issue with Thor Ragnarok, the CG there. But yeah, there are certain points, especially in the final third of Black Panther, where some of the CG is not just bad. It's noticeably bad. It's almost unrendered. Yeah,
and for a company like Marvel that's owned by Disney to have that issue, it's a little surprising, because it doesn't seem like they should. So I don't know where that fault is, because 2 movies in a row that have had similar problems.
And they probably both got... I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure they've got sizable budgets.
Yes, for sure. Now, both have directors who have not used CG like that before.
It's true. Taika Waititi hadn't, yeah.
But at the same time, they're not the ones actually doing the CG. Yes, they are directing it, so maybe that's the problem. Maybe in filming, they're not shooting it in a way that is... easily rendered or easily designed. I don't know enough about the process.
Possibly, but the director does have final say.
True.
So
very true.
Obviously, and it depends also on what aspect he's seeing it on, because I think sometimes when you see it on a trailer on your television, some of the CG can look awful, but then when you see the same CG translated onto cinema screen, it can look a lot better. So maybe it could be something simple that the format that they've seen it in works. However, it just hasn't translated well. Because surely they can't let that be an oversight.
No, they can't. And that's something I hope to see fixed, because if you go back to, Age of Ultron, there's tons of Ultron bots, in the last half of that movie, and I don't remember having any issue with the CG in those sequences.
I can't think of any, no.
Yeah, and now, again, I don't think I'm a person who usually even notices that. It's not something I usually nitpick, but 2 films in a row where it bothered me has a red flag up, because otherwise both of those films were great, but when it came to the traditional superhero stuff, it looked bad, and I don't understand how that can be with that company. There's no excuse for that, I guess.
No, or maybe we just have to go with nobody's perfect, I guess. But
yeah,
but like I say, the films themselves, the stories, because I also because I'm saying that I've come out and said I do like comic book films, but I'm not as much as others. However, last year I did like quite a few of them, Wonder Woman, Ragnarok, and so on. But the stories, certainly for Black Panther, the story is fantastic. The CG, it's a major, like I said, it's a red flag. But however, the story, the emotion, the acting, the power in this movie more than makes up for it.
Yes, and I do want to point out that while I went heavy on the nitpicking there, I love this movie. I totally gave my highest rating. I had a blast with it. My daughter went back the next night and saw it a second time because she was that into it, and it's a movie that I am very happy exists for so many reasons. Like, one, that we have strong characters, like one, who aren't white, and two, that are female in this film. Like, it was just super refreshing, and that the male characters in this movie don't talk down to the female characters. Like, it's refreshing to see a progressive movie being made in the comic book setting.
It would be nice to get to the point one day where we don't even have to call it refreshing. It's just the norm, the standard.
Yeah, where we just talk about it as if this is how it is, and it's getting better, but it's still a long way to go. But
we're getting there. But this movies like the and Wonder Woman and Black Panther, they really help, both being good films. Yeah, I agree. This film got pretty much top marks on myself almost.
Yeah, and again, the nitpicks are, I would say, minor, because the CG, even if it's not great, it didn't take me out of the movie or anything. I just happened to make a note of it, but I still had a good time watching it, and there is some cool action sequences, but I actually really like the character moments more in this film than any of the action scenes. Just like, hearing the conversations, seeing them interact with each other was so great. The brother and sister, T'Challa and his sister were so fun, and her kind of taking on the role of Q from Bond.
Yes, yeah. Apparently she's a genius. Is that right? In the movies, yeah. The character's an absolute genius.
Yeah, making all sorts of cool tech stuff. But I loved it. I like that dynamic a lot, and even you get some pop cultural references. And I don't know if you've heard this, but Donald Glover apparently was brought in to read the script and give some comments and feedback and tighten up some of the jokes. I heard
he touched the script up. Yeah. That's it. It was a joke. Yeah, he went over some of the comedy and smoothed it out a bit, and I thought that hit as well.
Yeah, and I'm wondering where his fingerprints, because there's some references to some older memes, which of course when they wrote it was probably a very relevant meme, but by the time it gets made and released,
it's a retro meme. Yeah, it's pop culture now. Yeah.
But it got a pretty loud reaction from my audience, so I felt like people still liked it, even though it was an older reference.
There's nothing Donald Glover can't do, I don't think. Anyway, just off topic there, but when you mention him,
yeah, I'm a big fan. I can't wait for Solo. Just because of him more than anything.
More than anything. I just want to throw out as well Andy Serkis, how good he was in this. He looked like he was having so much fun without the balls and the mocap suit all over him. He was brilliant, but he just looked like he was having a blast.
I agree. Like, he really, man, he was so big and interesting. It's funny because Marvel's, one of the stigmas that Marvel's had is a villain problem. A lot of their villains have been kind of forgettable or lame, and this movie had two, essentially, because Andy Serkis was also really awesome and dynamic and interesting, and then Michael B. Jordan, just phenomenal character. Like, Killmonger is a super memorable, awesome Marvel villain that hopefully, will set the bar for the rest of the movies that will be coming in the future, because there's a lot more coming. I think it's only going to get more rapid as they come out.
Now think how you've got Thanos in the next film, the biggest Marvel baddie of all. Now is he going to be able to be as good as, or make as much of an impression as Killmonger did? I guess it all depends on the story, of course,
and the expectations I think are higher because they've been teasing him for 12 movies now or something. I think, what is that? MCU's 18 films? I think the MCU is. Yeah,
but yeah, they've been teased for most of it. It's funny because you've hardly seen him yet. He's now going to be front and center in this massive ensemble film. So I'm interested to see how that one works.
Yeah, and I'm a big Josh Brolin fan, so I'm hoping it's great, but I'm definitely a little apprehensive because again, there's so much for 12 movies essentially to be hyping up a villain. That's a lot to live up to, he's going to have to be really great to deliver what we're all expecting, I guess.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, after 10 years of Marvel films to sort of culminate to this end of this, to these two movies, to two Infinity War films. Because I'm apprehensive about how they're going to pull it off, but I guess with their success rate, I'm not going to say they can't do it.
True. I agree for sure. So Black Panther is a commercial success too. It's been raking in the box office dollars. This week's release, the last week of February, the last Friday of February, the 23rd, Annihilation was released in theaters, and it was released in less theaters than originally expected. I don't know if this is happening everywhere, but in our local area, they pulled it before it even got to the theater.
It's amazing why they do that. I mean, I'm surely Paramount has enough confidence in, because overseas, internationally, it's a bit like over here. Certainly, I mean, I was lucky to see it earlier, but it's getting a Netflix release. It's being straight onto Netflix, and I think that's happening in a lot of the international markets as well. And it kind of, I mean, once you see the film, you're going to look at it and think, why on earth have they, thrown? I can kind of see why they might have pushed it onto Netflix, but because maybe they think it's going to be a divisive film. But come on, this film deserves a wide release,
big time. I definitely think not everyone's going to respond well to this movie because it touches on some challenging topics.
It's brutal.
And I think, without again spoiling anything, I won't say what, but I think it might have the most terrifying scene in film ever.
There's that one scene, isn't it? There's just one moment, one scene which is absolutely horrific.
Yeah, and there's other moments that are also like kind of terrifying, but there's one where it's like everything about the scene, like the atmosphere, the tone, and then what happens. It might be the scariest thing I've ever witnessed on film. Wow. And I've heard it from a few friends too who've kind of confirmed. I did bring my daughter to see Annihilation as well because she's a budding cinephile, so I'm like encouraging her to kind of come to some more challenging things. And I was a little apprehensive bringing her to Annihilation, but I think that was the quietest walk to the car we've ever had after a movie.
How did she feel after that? Because this is a movie that you have to be patient with. You have to really watch and give your full attention to. But once you get to the end of it, wow. But how did your daughter find it?
Her initial comment, because I waited till we were about halfway to the car before I even asked, like, what did you think? And her initial reaction was kind of mimic my own. Was kind of like, I'm not sure. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure either. I know it's great, but I don't know how I feel yet. Like, because it's so thought-provoking and so Alex Garland it's insane that this is his second film, first of all, which he had an amazing debut with Ex Machina. Now he's been writing for a while, but this is his second directed film, and I think it's perfect. Like, I can't really pinpoint any flaws in the movie that I'm like, oh, there was this or this thing happened. I just, the performances were amazing. I have some theories on some of the things that happened, which I won't get into again because this movie's fresh. It's only 2 or 3 days old when we're recording this. Yeah, so I don't want to spoil anything, and it's also a film that I think you should see on a big screen because it's visually stunning.
It's loud. You need the sound is incredible as well.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to talk about the sound of this movie, man. I wanted to say something in my review for it, and I left that out. Because, the sound design is also amazing in this movie. Between the music, and some of the musical choices are so interesting because there's a lot of, like, acoustic guitar.
Yeah, it's true.
It fits perfectly, but at the same time, it feels more optimistic than the movie itself. But it's a cool juxtaposition.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to talk. I said pre-show, I find it hard to talk about this film without giving anything away because it's quite hard. It's, like I said, there's a lot to take in, and the more you kind of start delving into the plot or the synopsis of it, the more you kind of realise you're stepping over yourself to not give anything away. It's one of those films which, I mean, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of buzz. I mean, people are saying the same thing. Just don't read anything. Just go out and watch this film. I mean, there's not really much to say that bad and that's bad. I mean, again, my biggest nitpick, which is it really a nitpick, is that the pacing could be ever so slightly sharper, but that's it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I could see. I'm definitely concerned with that element for your general audiences, that it could become boring. And I was a little worried with my daughter But I took her to see North by Northwest at a
Good choice.
Fathom event, right? But that one, I found when I showed North by Northwest to my classes, several of my students were like, it's too slow, it's boring. And so I was worried about her latching onto that when we saw it, and she loved it. So I kind of felt comfortable with that. And she's good about not, like, if we're home watching a movie, her phone is out. But if we're at the theater, she has the right etiquette and phone is away, and she gives the movie 100% of her attention.
Yeah. This movie, you need that, and I think that's part of the. Maybe that's why I think internationally it's been released, because I think it's similar to Mother. I mean, that did get the wide release, but getting audiences to sort of go in and watch this film and sort of take a punt on it and to really like invest in it, I don't think they had full confidence in, that the audiences would get it or respond to it how they want to.
Yeah, and I mean the narrative structure is very unique. It's challenging at the very least to kind of follow where everything is like in terms of a timeline. But not at Garland's fault. I think Garland navigates it perfectly, but it is like, again, you have to work to really keep track of everything that you see in the movie, and not everybody likes that.
No, and there's nothing, and on that point, there's nothing wrong with that. Not every movie needs to be. Which I'm going to get to on another movie we're going to talk about, but not every movie needs to be 100 miles an hour, full of action, or with everything getting smacked in the face with exposition.
Yeah.
But sometimes, especially in a film like this, just the slower pace, it just works, and the fact that you have to sit and think and take everything in, it pays off big time here.
I completely agree. So
something else that pays off big time is the ensemble cast. All the fact that everyone gets their chance in this film is such a fantastic cast, female-led cast as well.
Yeah, and Natalie Portman, who's obviously a well-received actress, Academy Award-winning actress, but what the performance she gives for this movie is so insane. And then I didn't even recognize Tessa Thompson in this movie. She was in Creed, and she's in Thor Ragnarok as Valkyrie, and here she is as this kind of timid physicist.
Yep, glasses and all, yeah.
Yeah, like almost unrecognizable, her performance in this movie compared to the other things I've seen her in. And I'm a big Jennifer Jason Leigh fan, and I thought she was great in this too. So
yeah, they all get a chance during it. It's not just this is Natalie Portman's vehicle and everybody else follows. I love Natalie Portman, by the way. She's fantastic. Everybody gets a chance in this film. All of the actors, they all get their moments. And that's what I like the most. It takes the time to actually invest and delve into the characters as well. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, totally. And this is one, it's based off of a book. It's actually based off of a trilogy of books. Yep. And I am now, I don't read much, but I am very interested in checking out the books to see the differences, and then also like I'd like to expand a little more into this world from the movie, and I don't know that we're going to get a trilogy of movies, unfortunately.
I think the way it's been distributed, and I don't think we're going to, which is a shame, because we get so many people screaming out for these kind of movies, but then when they come out, nobody goes to see them. So then the studios get cold feet, and then they go back to releasing, the stuff that makes the most money but may not always be the best. Transformers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Man, no, I was totally wanting to say Transformers.
Thank you.
I agree, because Blade Runner 2049 I loved so much last year, and I loved Arrival, that I think are both kind of similar. They're slow, they're quiet, they're introspective, and but they just don't bring the dollars, unfortunately.
It's a shame.
Big time.
And another shame is just because this Annihilation was released in February. By the time awards season next year comes, no one's going to be talking about this.
No way.
Whether or not it would be up for certainly sound design, but there's some fantastic performances in that sound design. I'd like to think people remember that this time next year.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe it'll find its legs on Blu-ray or something, because it'll come out long before the awards next year. So who knows? Maybe it'll get some hype from that. But I think if we look back at the 4 movies we saw this month, Matt and I are in agreement with Black Panther and Annihilation. We both say don't bother with 50 Shades unless you are just diehard fan. And then we're torn on Cloverfield Paradox. But if you have Netflix, it's already there. you could do worse things with 2 hours. I think
it's on Netflix. I'm glad. I didn't have to pay to see it. Go to the cinema, so I'm glad at that. So if you get a chance, watch it on Netflix. By all means, the Cloverfield Paradox isn't a terrible movie. It's not an awful movie. It just didn't grab me. It just didn't engage me. But it doesn't make it a bad movie per se.
Yeah, and there is some definite problems with some logic in that movie, but I had fun with it.
Yeah,
but
I mean, a bad movie would be something like Winchester, but
that
isn't on Netflix, so you don't have to talk to yourself with that.
Yeah, and avoid Winchester if you're going to the local cinemas.
Please do.
It has almost put everybody to sleep that I know who has seen it. So.
Yep, I was heavy lidded. My partner fell asleep during it, and I had to kind of nudge her to wake her up. So that's and I put in my review. But surely Dame Helen Mirren, she's a knight of the realm over here. Surely she can use her influences to get old Queen Elizabeth, get her to strike this film from history, execute it. It's that bad. It's absolutely terrible. There's not enough bad thing to say about this film.
No, I just can't believe how they could take such an interesting premise and
the base
just
story is
ruin
brilliant.
it.
The Winchester Mystery House is such a great story, and what the world does need, or what I need, is a good atmospheric haunted house movie, just a really a slow burning sort of dread kind of inducing haunted house film. But Winchester is not that.
Nope. It is not that at all.
No, I just felt sorry for the actors. Jason Clarke's, he's sweaty and frantic and panicking during the movie, and I assume that was just because he realised he couldn't get out of his contract for the film. And
he was so desperate.
I've got to film this, but don't watch that.
Nope. And
please.
I think the last thing we're going to talk about is the newest Netflix release, Mute.
Yeah, it hit yesterday. Yesterday, 23rd.
Yep.
I mean, we haven't spoken about this at all, so I don't know your. Well, actually, I gathered your thoughts earlier on, but I haven't heard what you thought about this.
Yeah, I just finished this at like 1:00 in my time, so about an hour before we started recording. I am a huge Paul Rudd fan. Like everything I think I've seen him in, I love him. Role Models is one of my favorite comedies. And I have an I Love You Man poster on my wall. I am big Paul Rudd fan. So when I first heard about this movie, I was super excited because new Paul Rudd movie. And then Duncan Jones is the director. And I am of the very small American minority of people who liked Warcraft. Because I did Yes, I played Warcraft. I was a Warcraft gamer for a long time. So knowing this, actually, I'll even admit a little farther. I read some of the novels based on the World of Warcraft.
You are, so, you do like it.
Yeah, I am very aware of the lore, so I had a good time with that movie. I didn't think it was perfect, but I had fun with that movie. And there was a lot, I got all the little references to the games and things, so I had a lot of connection to it for those reasons. To be fair, it did make over $300 million in China, so
success. And not many movies make money over there, so you're on a serious note. You're right. Yeah.
So it was saved by its China box office. Really, it's the only reason. Everyone was like, well, sure, it's bad, but it made a lot of money. But I love Moon. I'm also a huge Sam Rockwell fan, so
Moon's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, Moon's brilliant, and Source Code, which I didn't even realize was his movie when I saw it, was also really interesting, and Jake Gyllenhaal's great in it. So I went into Mute very optimistic, except that I'd heard a lot of negative things before I watched it. But I still I was like, you know what? I like Cloverfield, so maybe there's a chance. And I didn't. I didn't like almost any of it, except I love Paul Rudd. I thought Cactus Bill is awesome. I don't think I've ever seen Paul Rudd play a villain
He's definitely
character.
Type.
Yeah, and I just thought, man, he really some of his dialogue, because there's a lot of homophobic dialogue that comes out of him that felt like almost it was out of the 90s. It felt like stuff you would hear in 90s movies. I think he called someone a faggot. Sorry to use that word, but I wanted to quote him because I was really shocked to hear that. It's not something you hear being used in that way much anymore.
No. Certainly because this film's also set 40 years in the future, I think.
Yeah, so I was like, why is he got... And in a world where it seems like sexuality was very fluid, right? characters
the way
were
they
into
talk
everything.
to each other, yeah. The way
So-
Cactus Bill and Duck, Justin Theroux's character, talk to each other. I mean, there's a lot of undertones there.
So I was really surprised at some of the slurs he was throwing out to be a villain, but it never felt like fake in the way he delivered it, but just like the writing of it felt kind of like, wow, were you pulling from 90s villains? Like, but I thought Rudd's delivery of almost everything was great. Justin Theroux, I didn't necessarily dislike his performance, but I did not like the character of Duck. There was so many things, so many choices about the plot in this movie were just mind-boggling. Even the setup of our lead character, played by Alexander Skarsgård, Leo, being both mute and Amish in a futuristic technological world.
It's the thing you'd think you're going to hear in a movie plot. Mute and Amish.
Yes. It's like, pick one thing. Like, why is he got to have two things?
And he dresses like an Amish does now, but 40 years in the future, so they clearly haven't made any advancements.
And he's not living on a farm. Like, he's still living in the city, so I don't know.
He's living in
he was clearly
Berlin, yeah.
Yeah, and he's still clearly Amish, though. But, like, I'm like, well, why are you living there and not, like, with other Amish people? Like,
maybe he's the last of his kind. They never went into that.
Well, I that's an interesting, actually, idea, except I felt like I saw other Amish-dressed people in the city. Like,
I think it was Paul Rudd's character. I think he did, or what somebody, one of the characters did reference him as an Amish at some point. And it didn't.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was or whether they had a connection with him, but somebody else did mention it to him.
I think it was the coffee shop owner, which has an Easter egg in it, which I don't want to say because of spoilers, but
yes.
Yeah, I was kind of like bummed out by that Easter egg at the end of the movie because I'm like, oh, that's not. Yeah, because it's like, well, is that it? And also because like this movie doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Again, I know I'm trying not to spoil it, but
doesn't stack up.
No. Overall, it doesn't do anything particularly really cool with the setting. Like you said, in this futuristic world, it doesn't seem like that matters, really at all. Like I don't know why the movie couldn't have been just now. Like, other than there's a couple of little things, but they're not relevant to the plot so much. They're just kind of there. Like, it's like, hey, this is a very modern day type of story, but I'm gonna put shiny neon lights at night to make it look more like Blade Runner. Like
flying takeaway drones.
Yeah, that was cool, but pointless.
Those, but yeah, there's an undeniable whiff of Blade Runner. Also, I think this is Duncan Jones' his attempt at making his own Blade Runner. It's just not as good.
No, nowhere near.
This is one of those films. Unlike Annihilation, this one is ponderous, it's slow, it's unengaging. And again, a movie doesn't have to be all action to be good, but it's so tonally strange that it's hard to become compelled. Like you say, there's some subplots, and there's one massively ill-judged subplot in there, which I won't spoil. There's one subplot which is just kind of thrown in. And you kind of think, wow, why have they put this in? What relevance does it have? And it only makes me think these characters are even more d-bags. But Alex Skarsgård, I didn't find him particularly compelling. He can't. No. He's mute, so he has that unenviable task of trying to emote just to his face, and he kind of just looked at times. He just sort of looked pained. He kind of pulling faces when you can't really hear someone. You kind of squinting and leaning forward. What did you say? Pardon? Kind of face.
Yeah,
I like Paul Rudd and Justin Theroux, but it was a really strange double act, which again was at odds with the rest of the movie. I liked their performances, but like you said, the character of Duck, he's not a character written to be liked, and I just didn't like the character anyway.
Yeah, but, exactly.
Pretty much Leo, Skarsgård's character, his girlfriend, she's part of the plot. And it's his kind of he's going around Berlin attempting to contact her again, and it kind of takes you from a bar to nightclubs to these different brothels, whorehouses, with no success, and of course everything's eventually surely it's going to tie in, but you've got kind of half of it's this sort of gloomy I had the D word, dystopian, bleak
Yeah.
cityscape with Skarsgård kind of moping around, trying obviously to get more information. And on the other half, you've almost got this kind of like buddy comedy going on with Rudd and Theroux. Kind of, it's
Dude,
like two directors made the film and thought, right,
Yeah.
here's what I've got, here's what you've got, make it work, and it just doesn't work.
Yep.
It's futuristic neo noir, but only when it wants to be. There are some cool out there. There are some one or two cool action scenes in it, but that's about it. And it's about 20 minutes too long. There's a lot of endings to it. It could have been a lot shorter. They could have taken a lot out. To me, it's a massive missed opportunity. I think
Big time.
It could have been a modern sort of. I certainly I'm not. I like reboots and remakes, but I'm always saying rather than just taking a franchise and just making it a sequel, make your own franchise. You know, with nods to this film that's inspired you, which is clearly what Mute is. This is Jones's attempt at making his own Blade Runner with his own stamp, but it just doesn't work. It could have been so much more. And for me, it's just Netflix is now the last few releases, Bright, Cloverfield, and this have just been underwhelming.
Yeah, and I still haven't watched Bright, but I've not heard a single good thing about it. Yeah, exactly. I can't bring myself to do it. And Paul Rudd, if they had approached this film as the same like idea of a noir, I think would have worked. But making Cactus the protagonist, a vile, despicable protagonist, mind you, but that same character as the lead character would have been such a better movie.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I can just see like so many things shaping, and it could have been so much better. And honestly, like there's so much of this wants to be a noir, but it fails left and right with being a compelling detective story.
Yep.
And I was really disappointed.
Did Leo need to be mute to make the film work?
Nope.
Okay, it's not just me then, because it's a cool angle. It's an interesting take having the protagonist be mute, and apparently he's very smart, but he just beats people up rather than actually tries to reason with them. But there's also I won't spoil anything, but Dominic Monaghan makes probably the weirdest cameo you're going to see this year.
Yes.
I was
100%.
watching it thinking, what the hell's going on? I was like, that's the Hobbit guy. The Lord, that's what's his name? And Lost guy. But
Charlie, yeah,
that's it. I thought, no, really, oh wow. But that's one you have to see to believe.
Yeah, I was so like when he popped up, I'm like, oh my god. And then I was like, "Oh my god, what is happening? Like, why is he this guy?"
Stare at the floor for 2 minutes before this ends. I hope I'm still got paid well. So. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. He hasn't done anything in a while, so.
No, he's done some kids' TV. I think he's done Sophia the First. Yeah, I know that because I have young kids in the house, so I'm aware of that.
Yeah,
but that's probably more entertaining than his cameo.
Yeah, definitely a huge misstep. Another, like you said, with Netflix. Not a good sign with the movies that they've been picking up. Definitely, I'm really sad because Duncan Jones now with 2 flops. I assume this is going to flop. Last I saw, it's not getting good reviews at all.
Yeah.
But with this and Warcraft, it's not looking good for his future. I don't know if he's going to be able to get something he wants to do made. He might end up having to take more of like a journeyman type role and just pick up other people's scripts and make those. Because after Moon, I think he had a little bit of carte blanche to like, hey, you showed how creative you can be, and then this is just.
I think it's Mute.
Huge misstep.
Had moments which were fairly creative. I mean, there was it was original, certainly to parts of it were, and again there was a lot there to think. This could have worked if there'd been. I don't know if it just. I don't want to say worked on more because I mean the guy he had this movie in his head for 10, 12, 15 years. So it's not like he hasn't been thinking about it. And I think that's the most disappointing thing. Is that this is obviously a labour of love for him, and it just didn't work out. But which is a shame because there are seeds of a really good movie in there, but it just didn't come out. But maybe Netflix may be his salvation. Maybe doing smaller films on Netflix which get more critical attention could work out better for him.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think this movie reminds me of Suburbicon in a way, just that it feels like
Why did you remind me of that?
I know, right? It was brutal, right? But it had the same thing. There's little seeds of excellence inside of a bunch of garbage, and if you can remove the garbage, there was a good movie there. It just got piled on with a bunch of other stuff like that belonged in different films, and this movie has that same feel. Like there's so many things that's like, why are these two things happening? And he tries to tie them together at points, but it just never really works. It's just
no
like
logical connection. Really, yeah. There's one obviously, but again, even most of the connections or the twists, they are forced. They feel forced to me.
Very feel
kind
forced,
of make it a cohesive story and try and make these sort of strange warring plots come together. Threads come together somehow. It goes down as a missed opportunity. I think I nailed it in my review. I didn't like it whatsoever, but it's definitely, I did concede at the end that this could have been a lot better. This should have been a lot better, but unfortunately, what we're left with is this.
Yeah, and it did make me excited for Ant-Man and Wasp though, because I love Paul Rudd, so I'm just like, I want more Paul Rudd.
And watching
a better movie.
Cactus's Brian Fantana moustache was very exciting. I like that. It made me think of Anchorman, and that made me smile during it. And then I got back into watching this film.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with Rudd's ability to be a bad guy though. It's hard to go against type like that and be convincing, and I was actually intimidated by his character a couple of times where I'm like, wow, I didn't think Paul Rudd could pull that kind of tone and be genuine, because he's not like a silly bad guy. He's like he's a presence. Like, people are afraid
menacing,
of him.
But
yeah,
I think what lets it down is because there are times when he is given more of the, I wouldn't say fun. There's no fun moment. It's not really a fun film.
Yeah,
but
no.
Because he's afforded a few more lighter moments. It does, for me, it took away slightly from his, presence. But for an against type performance, I thought he was good.
Yeah, and that's what you just said, though, I think is why I think he would have been a better protagonist, because of those little light moments, because those moments make it seem like maybe he isn't the bad guy, but he was supposed to be. But, like, if you turn that table and you make him in a noir, especially, where a lot of times there are no good guys in a noir film, everyone's evil. That's kind of the whole attitude. It would have worked so much better. Because here he is, this guy who isn't a good guy, but yet you see some redeemable qualities in him. That would have worked.
Yeah, there's certain moments. I mean, there are ties he has ties in the movie to people who he's very loyal to, and you find that very endearing. But
yes,
yeah, but like I say, but he also then gets to do bad things to people as well. But yeah, he does kind of toe that line somewhat of being, he's the villain, or is he?
Yeah, and I kept waiting for that to play out differently than it ended up playing out. So, that's a little bonus movie, but neither of us were thrilled with Moon. Not Moon. We love Moon, not Mute. I hate that it's even in the same sounding name. Like, I'm like, Moon, Mute, 4 letters with an M. Mute. Crap.
Yeah. It's not as good as the good one.
Yes. So, I think, is there any other movies you wanted to talk about?
No, for new releases, we went over Winchester, and I just don't want to go for Winchester again. But no,
yes,
nothing this month. I'm looking forward to next month. There's a lot of good movies coming out next month, which I'm looking forward to.
Yes, and March is busy for me as well, because I will be going to South by Southwest and watching a crap ton of movies, including, I hope, A Quiet Place at its South by Southwest premiere. Yes, I hope I get in. I am it's the big highlight and opening night film, so I don't know how bad the wait is going to be to get into that. But last year it was Baby Driver that premiered, so I'm expecting it to be very crowded and almost impossible. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to get early seats to Red Sparrow next month, so I'm looking forward to that. But then what else we've got? I mean, Game Night. I think that's already out in the States. It comes out this week in the United Kingdom. A Wrinkle in Time, Tomb Raider, Pacific Rim, Ready Player One, The Meg, Thoroughbreds, Love, Simon comes out. Isle of Dogs. I think The Strangers probably at night comes out. There's a lot of films coming out in March to look forward to. So I think we're going to struggle with just 4 films next month. So
yeah, but we will pick specifically 4 that we will guarantee that we both see,
Yep.
and we will be back in 1 month to talk about those and anything else we saw, which I will have just way too many films to talk about, so I will have to keep it very brief. But because I'm planning on seeing at least 20 movies at South by, probably going to get closer to 30 as I am there for 9 days, and will have nothing but watching movies planned. So it will be a busy month for sure. But
there's worse problems to have in the world.
There definitely are. With that, I think that concludes our first episode of the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast. Matt and I will be back. In the meantime, you can follow us on our social medias. I am at Burke Reviews, and Matt?
I am at WIWT_UK at Twitter, and at What I Watched Tonight on Instagram.
And you can go to BurkeReviews.com and read my reviews, and you can go to Matt's website,
www.whatiwatchdtonight.co.uk,
and keep up with what we're doing. Until next month, keep on watching the movies, people.
Stay bloody awesome.
Peace.
Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Blood, bloody, blood, bloody, blood, bloody, bloody awesome!